Welcome to Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks, and joined as always by your friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Hackett. How are you today, Stephen?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I am excellent. We have a guest today. Welcome to the show, Vlad Prelovac.
Thanks for having me.
Vlad is the primary mover and shaker behind the app search service Kagi, and we're going to be getting into that today. Vlad, I didn't even think to ask you, is that how you pronounce it, Kagi?
Yeah, that would be correct.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And for those of you who aren't aware, I've been a Kagi subscriber, I don't know, a couple of years now. It replaces Google search on your Mac, and it just does a better job. We're going to get into the details of why later. But before we do, Stephen, any preliminary announcements today?
Yeah, you wrote a thing about pencils, which I just have lots of questions about.
Yeah, I still use pencils, man. I like them. You know, Mike has the pen addict. I'm a pencil guy. Well, you know, one of the things that's going on is I wrote this thing about pencils in the newsletter, and I'm kind of proud of the work I do in the newsletter. It is what I would call Mac Power Users adjacent content. If you haven't signed up, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a try. We're going to put a link in the show notes. And Stephen has an interesting thing over at his website too.
Yeah, I just updated the merch store over on 512 Pixels with some stickers and a couple of new shirts, one celebrating the 20th anniversary Mac and the other celebrating the iMac G4. That the iMac G4 shirt has been in the works for a long time, trying to get that computer, you know, with the display that floated on that chrome arm, trying to get that work and out like a line art was hours and hours of work, but I'm super happy with it. You should go check it out. Those links are in the show notes.
All right, Vlad, you decided, you know, that the weak company that you should take on was Google, and I love that. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about kind of how you got into the position of making a company like Kagi. Tell us a little about your background.
Sure. Just before I go there, just to add to Stephen's note, I have an iMac G4 on my desk right now, so yes. I completely understand the the draw. So
now you're just sucking up to the audience, Vlad. I'm just going to say it.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
I think we should make that a new rule. If you want to guest on Mac Power Users, you got to have an iMac G4.
Yeah, I can see the one in my office from here. It's sitting on the shelf over there.
That's the only proper way to do it. Yeah. So I started with computers pretty early on, 83. The first thing I saw on my computer screen was Elite, the game, on my C64.
Yeah.
So that kind of propelled my interest into computers. I think that I was mind blown as a 7-year-old back then, and it never stopped. And in the early 2000s, I got exposed to the web, and it was this just Wild West and so much opportunity. And I started doing some projects on the web, which eventually turned into my first company. It was called ManageWP. It was a WordPress management platform. And we managed about 500,000 websites by the time of acquisition. And that acquisition caused me to move to Bay Area, where I live today with my family. And around 2018, I got this itch to do something new, which eventually turned into Kagi. And the idea was that the way that we consumed the web through mainly ad-based businesses was broken. That led to poor user experiences and very bad outcomes for the users. And there was really no alternative back in the day. If you wanted to pay for your search engine, you just couldn't. You could buy YouTube Premium, for example, for your kids, but for something as important as search, you were just out of luck. And this was one of the main reasons behind my decision to start a company, basically trying to fix search.
That's a pretty noble cause, right? I remember, I'm old enough to remember when there was a lot of competition between search engines, and then one day Google showed up and it just pantsed everybody. and that was great. We all switched to Google, but so many years of being the only game in town has led to a subpar user experience. I mean, when I do a Google search, to the extent I do them at all anymore, it's just shocking to me how much of it is about paid ads and things other than giving me the service I want. So I stumbled into this. I don't remember who told me. I think one of my Max Marketing Labs members told me about it. And my first thought was, $10 a month for search. And then I got thinking, well, wait a second. I'm not a guy who goes and buys Starbucks every day. And so I tried it out, for a month, thinking I would just try it to see if it was something I could even just write about as an ex-Sparky. And then it just ruined me like within a week. Like I can't imagine not using it because for folks who haven't tried it, this is search without the influence of dollars and advertising. Basically, whatever you want, it just shows up. It doesn't push ad-driven links at you, and I really like it. I'm a big fan.
And thanks for saying that. It's I think philosophy of Kagi is one way to think about it is just the business model is novel. So there's a subscription instead of ads. And the other thing is that the subscription-based business model allows us to do is to innovate profoundly in search. For 20 years, there has been very little progress in the way search worked. And we have been able, with a relatively small team and just a span of a couple of years, to bring in so many new features into search and really elevate that search experience. And what really allows it is that the search is now built for the user using it. It's not built for advertisers. And that is one thing that many people are not aware of, that they are not the user that's typical search experience is being optimized for. It's being optimized to satisfy the needs of advertisers who are eventually putting money in their pockets. So there was so much room to innovate in search, putting aside just the search quality and search results, but just things in the search experience to bring it more into the modern age, I would say. So we brought these two things together, and a lot of people in the tech sphere have responded very positively to that.
Customer-focused search. I mean, what an idea, right? But you must have, when you first started doing it, you must have gotten a lot of pushback from people just saying, wait a second, you're making a search engine? Why would you do that? Google is what everybody uses. I mean, what was the response when you first started telling people your idea for the product?
Yeah, so because I lived in Silicon Valley, then I tried doing what everyone is supposed to do here, and I went to a couple of VCs first, and they all told me, "You're crazy. Nobody's going to pay for search. Beat it, kid." And luckily, I did have some funds from my acquisition of my previous company, so I just decided I'm going to go all in. So I basically bootstrapped the company with my own money. I am literally going all in, and just doing it nevertheless, because I had this sort of matrix, awakening moment. And this was in 2018. I remember exactly the query that did it for me. I was searching something on Google. I think it was GitLab, the GitHub replacement, and I got a sponsor link for GitLab, and then the organic link for GitLab, one after the other. And I thought to myself at that moment, for the first time, like, this is insulting my intelligence on such a profound level. Like, why would anyone give me two identical results? That was the moment I really realized that search was not built to optimize for me. And that was enough. Like, I could not walk back from that. So I was pretty determined that I'll do something about it and try to leverage, as many technologies that I can. And I found a shelter in this little community on the web called Hacker News. there was a lot of like-minded people who were also disappointed with the way Google was going at the time, and that gave me just a lot of ideas, like what were the features that people wanted, how did they imagine perfect search and things like that. So building of those ideas, and getting some early traction on that community, that was instrumental to get Kagi going. And when we launched in 2022, was when we launched the paid version. We had hundreds of paying customers the very first day. So that was all that was needed to then propel Kagi to where it is today.
I really respect that you put your own skin in the game there. I was reading an article recently, when Walt Disney wanted to make Disneyland, his board didn't support him. They thought it was a stupid idea. So he sold his vacation home, he mortgaged his own home, and he sold his life insurance policy. He put his own well-being at risk for an idea. And I was just telling my wife yesterday, I said, you just don't see people doing that anymore. Like, is Tim Cook going to mortgage his house to support the next Apple product? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, probably not.
And then the next day I get on the phone and advertise and interview Vlad, who tells me he just did the same thing. Mm-hmm. I really like that. I mean, it means you believe in it. And I think that's something pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I owe a lot of support from my wife. In 2023, we kind of hit a low point. We were, having customers, having revenue, but still losing money, to pay for the team and salaries and things like that. So early 2023, we hit a low point where we actually had to sell some property to help fund the company. So, and I'll never forget that discussion we had. It was sort of half joking, half not. I asked her, "Are you willing to go and live in a trailer with me?" And she said yes. And that was all I needed, but that kind of support really matters. And I'm really lucky to have a wife who understands the things that I'm working on. So
I agree with everything David has said. What a ambitious and meaningful project to take on. Tell us a little bit about the team now, though. I mean, I assume you all started small, but building a search engine is a big job. What does the company look like now?
Yeah, so right now the team is about 50 people, and we have moved past just being a search engine. And the idea from the very beginning was not to be a one product company. Mm-hmm. I realized very early on that you need to holistically replace big tech or offer a replacement, which means you need to build a browser, which means you need to build email and other products. So we were basically conceived as an ecosystem company. It just took us a while to get there. And now we have multiple teams working all across the board. So we already have a browser and search out. We have an AI assistant. We're working on an email product. There's Kagi Translate, which is really great. And a bunch of other smaller products. So we are basically working on creating a full ecosystem that you can use to access the web and that has your best interest in mind. So that's the idea, and that's what the team is working on right now.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password. Go to 1password.com/MPU today and get 20% off your plan. 1Password is the place Stephen and I go to protect ourselves and our families from all of that danger out there on the internet. 1Password is not only a top-notch password generator and saver, it saves all sorts of secure data and is like your little buddy looking out for you on the internet to make sure you don't get into any trouble. We were mentioning on the show today that it seems like there's a lot of new browsers showing up. We talked about Orion. There's also a bunch of AI-based browsers starting to show up. Well, I've been exploring with these, and one of the reasons it's so easy for me is I've got all my passwords in the 1Password database. They go with me wherever I go on the internet through whatever browser I go to the internet with. I love that. With 1Password, security isn't a feature, it's the foundation. The entire company was built on the principle of protecting user data above everything else. But they make it easy. Everything is secured at your fingertips. You don't have to choose between security and convenience with 1Password. You can manage all of your information and credentials in one place and access it with Touch ID or Face ID, all of the great technologies Apple's giving us, making it super easy to get safe and secure passwords and use them. They make security simple. And that's why I've been able to share with my whole family. I've got a family plan. I've got my kids on it, my wife on it, and they all regularly use 1Password. 1Password makes it easy to create unique and strong passwords. It makes it easy to share passwords with confidence. And it gives you insights to your overall security on the internet with their Watchtower service that scans your saved items and flags known data breaches, weak and reused passwords, and websites that don't support passkeys. I love the way 1Password has evolved over the years. As the internet has got more complicated, 1Password has got more powerful to protect me better, but it hasn't got more complicated. I'm a big fan. You should check it out. Go to onepassword.com/MPU today. You get 20% off your subscription right there, and you can let them know you heard about it here on the Mac Power Users.
So we do want to get to your multiple products, but I do want to start with the search engine. I think that's what most people know you for. And, right off the bat, like when I was exploring it for the first time, I was like, well, Google has these deals, right? They obviously they own Chrome, but they pay Apple to be the default in Safari. And time will tell if those two things stay true, right? Both of those things are in front of courts and judges in the US and around the world. But when you're starting a search engine, I assume one of the first things on the whiteboard is how do we integrate with browsers that aren't ours? So for someone interested in getting started with your search engine, how do they go about actually using it as something like Safari or Chrome?
Yeah, that's a pretty big consideration. Getting to be even listed in those browsers is super hard. And even now, after 8 years of operation, we are not even close, I would say, which is also one of the reasons we started working on our own browser initially. But we have, in the meantime, developed a set of extensions that you can use in Chrome and in Safari and elsewhere. I should say that, interestingly enough, Safari is the only browser that I know of that does not allow users to change a default search engine to a custom one. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you have 4 options in Safari, and that's it. If you want to use something else, you're kind of out of luck, or you have to resort to a clunky extension. I should say it's it's working by redirecting the searches from your selected search engine in Safari to the target one. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty clunky experience that has been frustrating a lot of users, and we spoke to Apple about several times. Apple that just have this policy, like there are 4 search engines in Safari, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that makes it super, super hard for users who want to stay in Safari experience to use Kagi. But as I say, we have our own extension that helps with this.
I can tell you the way I solve it is I just built an Alfred extension, because Alfred is a keyboard launcher on Mac. And so I just, invoke Alfred, type K space, and then I can do my search, and it takes care of it. Doesn't answer the problem on mobile, obviously, but for people who are out there listening, if you want to make Safari your default browser and you use something like Alfred or Raycast, any of these launchers, you can easily make this work.
Yeah.
What the thing I like about Kagi is that's what really drew me in is the search results. They're just so much better. You're not seeing multiple entries, the ad sponsored version and the standard one, but you also do a great job of data organization. The relevance of the results are really good. I don't even know how that's built at this point. I'm not deep enough down the web development stack to know how. But you have a relatively small team, but you're getting really good results. Can you tell a little bit about how that all bakes?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. When you have a small team and small resources, you really have to leverage whatever you can. So we get initial results from every search engine out there that we can get. And then we run them through our algorithms and do some, I would say, simple stuff that, like, they are very obvious in retrospect. For example, we downrank pages with a lot of ads and trackers on them, something ad-based search engines don't, and I guess cannot do. And this turns out to be a very strong signal. Like, it produces result relevancy that is much better, as most of these pages that have a lots of ads and trackers on them have pretty low quality content. You all seen those pages, like there's two sentences of signal and everything else is noise. Just a ton of ads and pop-ups and all sorts of low quality content. So things like that. Also on the organization side of results, one thing we do is listicles, grouping listicles together. So all those posts, best 10 headphones 2025 kind of posts, they get grouped together in Kagi, so you can just visually skip them because they usually tend to lead to poor quality websites with affiliate links and questionable reporting. So there are all these sort of big and small things that you can do. We also have our own index that focuses on non-commercial web. So we crawl only websites that are non-commercial in nature, which is mostly personal blogs and forums. And this has two benefits. First is that the quality of content on those websites tends to be very high because people write because it's their passion and have something to say, versus the purpose of the writing being monetization. And the second, we basically give platform to all these websites that are otherwise forgotten on other search engines. And we actually call this Kagi Small Web Initiative. So, and this is an open source project. So there's a list of websites that you can add it and add your own website to. And Kagi will not only crawl it, but we would rank it pretty high up in our results, as we give a lot of weight to these kind of non-commercial pages. And this is just to give you sort of a sense of all the small things that Kagi does that are all user-centric and optimized for user getting the best possible information, versus search engine making the most money by keeping the user searching and clicking on ads.
It's funny. I asked the question, and as you're answering, I realize all you're doing is just making the user the priority, right? I mean,
yeah.
Every single one of those things is like, how do we get the best content to the user without respect to monetizing the user?
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Google and others can do that too. It's just the choice that they made not to. It's a choice that they make to optimize for something else. But every search engine is perfectly capable of optimizing outcomes for the user. It's just that in most search engines, the user is not a customer, and in Kagi it is. So we have this very clear alignment of incentives. And if we don't do that, the people will stop paying. So, that keeps us honest and keeps us innovating all the time.
And a large part of that is the privacy angle. And y'all do several things to help keep user data, their search history, what they're doing on the service private. Could you walk through a couple of those things?
Yeah. So I have to say privacy is basically a side effect of the business model here. And what I mean by that is when your business model is subscription, then you not only don't have incentive to get, keep, or store user data, it becomes a liability for you. And in that sense, we are not logging user queries. We take as minimum information as possible. You can, create a Kagi account with a fake email if you want to. That will make maybe restoring the account harder, or but we really don't want anything from the user other than $5 or $10 a month and delivering the best quality search results. We even recently, I think it was late last year, released something called Privacy Pass. Is basically a technology that guarantees from a technical level. So one thing is me saying we are not storing your searches and you have to trust us. Now we have launched Privacy Pass, which guarantees from a technical standpoint that we don't know who the user searching is. So there are a lot of things that Kagi does that are, I think, setting the next level of privacy, and it purely flows from the business model itself. Like, we have literally no incentive to store or use user data, and everything comes from there. So pretty straightforward.
And yet pretty unique in my experience.
Right. It shouldn't be, right?
What are your, for folks listening who've never played with Kagi, what are some of your favorite kind of like power tips? We've got a lot of power users in our audience. If they want to kick the tires on Kagi, what are some things they should try once they get in?
Sure. So Kagi is set up pretty much, to be optimal by default, but there are features that you discover along the way, and we don't push them to the users. It's sort of a treasure hunt, I would say, experience. But one of my favorite and crowd favorite certainly is ability to block websites that you don't like. So we call this search personalization, or the ability to personalize your search feed. And basically, it's a philosophy that instead of trying to figure out what the user wants, which is what other search engines do, we give the user tools to personalize their feed. So if they don't like a website because of certain political affiliation, for example, they can just block it in Kagi search results. And similarly, if there is a particular website that they like, they can promote it and raise it in our search results. And we actually have a public page with the most blocked and most raised websites, and you would see things like Wikipedia and GitHub and things like that in the promoted list, and things like Pinterest. And some political news outlets and things like that in the blocked list. So kind of expected, but this ability really helps craft the feed that you like, and it's pretty powerful. Like, you can block any website if it's low quality results, you don't like it. One click, and it's never going to show up again in your Kagi search results.
Yeah, and it's domain level block, so you can.
It is domain level. Yeah, correct.
I agree. I like that feature.
Yeah. The other one I would say is pretty popular is our lenses feature. And lens is basically a subset of search results targeted around certain domain. And we ship, I would say, maybe a dozen lenses by default. So things like academic results, or forums, or programming results, or recipes. So these are all sort of hand curated subsets of the web that you can just search for, but you can also create your own. Like, if you have a hobby, collecting coins or something like that, you could add or create a lens with your favorite coin collection websites and just search against those. So it's a pretty powerful way to, again, accelerate your searching and find information you need faster.
Yeah, and the built-in lenses, like when you're getting it already done, like they have one for news. If you just want to search forums, if you're into programming and you want to look at programming languages, one of the lenses you have that I really appreciate is that it searches for PDF files. Quite often, like, you go and you'll be searching some site just to get the forms, and your PDF lens makes that really possible. but it gives you a good kind of introduction to it. But like I could put one together for woodworking or something if I wanted as well. Again, just kind of bringing user customization to your web experience.
Yeah, and I should mention the feature that I use the most, and it's also pretty popular, is adding a question mark to the end of your query. So when you do this in Kagi, we will actually generate an AI answer to your query. So Kagi doesn't have any sort of AI overviews and things like that by default. We don't do that, but you can easily trigger them on demand by adding a question mark. Oh, if you're asking a question or anything like that, it's pretty sort of natural. You just add a question mark and you will get an AI generated summary that is pretty fast, uses, Kagi search results, obviously. So it's pretty accurate. And it has been one of the most popular features recently. So,
all right, and that kind of spills over into Kagi Assistant. Could you explain that a little bit?
basically, we all witnessed the rise of LLMs, and they are fundamentally changing the way we consume information. And I think it has a lot of impact on search as well. Suddenly, we are able to ask computers much more complicated and sophisticated and longer questions that we couldn't before. And we have realized that, and we have launched a product called Kagi Assistant, which basically gives access to all of the top LLMs in the world and the results are grounded in Kagi search. So you have your OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, and other models, all under one umbrella, in an interface that is inspired, interestingly enough, by Apple Notes. I thought that was a pretty good UX to build a chat experience around. This is similar in structure and organization. So it's a pretty unique experience compared to other chatbots around there. And yeah, you can do pretty much all the things that you can do in other chatbots. And the advantage is you have all these models under your fingertips, and these models are grounded in Kagi search results, which gives you higher accuracy. And yeah, we have this included in all plans. So even the $10 plan gets this. You just have standard models available, and our ultimate plan at 25 gives you access to all the state-of-the-art models.
Yeah, and like if you do want to include AI search into your web search, this is good. And you're right. I didn't realize you built the result around Apple Notes, but looking at results, I can completely see how you did that. I mean, the look of it, with the way it renders bullets and headings, looks just like an Apple Note. I haven't tried blocking and copying one of these into an Apple Note. Does it carry the heading information over?
You should try and see.
Yeah, no worries. Putting you on the spot here. I don't know.
Yeah, I use Apple Notes as my go-to note-taking app. And, this is why it was inspired by it. I just like the organization of it and simplicity. Just the sidebar with a list of notes, which is, basically your chats, and the controls on top and all that. Like, people using Apple Notes will immediately be familiar with Kagi Assistant interface.
Your team definitely knows the boss uses Apple Notes because it works. If you paste in, it brings over bullets, headings, everything. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
All right. You had mentioned, Vlad, that you feel like, to really cover this, you got to have the whole enchilada. Tell us about the Orion browser.
Yeah. So we started working on Orion, interestingly enough, before Kagi search. And if Apple did a little bit better job with Safari, it might have never happened. Maybe Kagi would have never happened. But in principle, I'm using a lot of default tools in my Mac OS. So I used to use Safari and Notes and all the default apps. Like I really like the simplicity and universal access. You have them everywhere and things like that. And there were just enough things that bother me about Safari that I thought it was worth building a new browser over. One of the reasons, obviously, I mentioned some of the other earlier. And so we decided to build a WebKit-based browser, which is pretty hard to do these days. Most browsers out there that you see are Chromium-based, which is the open source framework that Chrome and Google Chrome is built upon. There are some browsers using Firefox. Their framework is called Quantum. And there are a bunch of browsers using that, but there are not a lot of WebKit-based browsers. And one of the reasons for that is there's no web browser app framework for WebKit. Meaning, if you want to build a Chromium browser, you just get Chromium, you compile it, change the name, and you have a full functioning browser. If you want to do that with WebKit, you compile WebKit and you just have the rendering engine. And then you need to build the entire app, meaning every menu, every button, every window, everything manually, which is, the reason there are not many WebKit browsers out there. So in the true spirit of Kagi, doing hard things that don't scale, we decide to do a WebKit browser. And there's also another reason. WebKit is the most efficient and most performant engine on Apple devices, obviously. It's been developed by Apple. So if I'm going to do a browser, it needs to be a proper one. It needs to be a native citizen of the Apple ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And we decided to go with Apple first, and for two reasons. One was just selfish. I was using Mac, so I wanted a browser that I can use. Simple enough. And the other one, I also realized that Apple users, Apple customers, really appreciate high quality products and are willing to pay. And Kagi was in this interesting position. We are launching a paid search and paid browser. And I thought Apple users would be more receptive to the idea of paying for a high quality product. So those were the two reasons we selected WebKit. And it was a very hard journey, as you can imagine, with a small team, building a browser basically from scratch, just having the rendering engine. And not only that, but we set it a goal from day one that Orion will have full web extension support, something that Safari is lacking. You have these proprietary extensions on Safari, but there are hundreds of thousands of extensions available for Chrome and Firefox because it's basically an open standard that developers can use. And I was really missing that on top of WebKit. So I wanted a performant browser that can also run all these extensions available to Chrome and Firefox. And we built that. We basically ported the web extensions API to WebKit. We are not completely done there yet, so there is still work to be done, but most extensions work, and you can just point Orion to Chrome Store or Firefox Store. And by the way, we support both, so it's the only browser in the world that I know of that can load both Chrome and Firefox extensions, and just load those extensions into a WebKit-based browser. So this way you get a performant browser, but also one that's open to these standards and being able to run these hundreds of thousands of extensions out there.
Well, can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I didn't even think that was possible. When I was doing the research for the show, I didn't realize Orion was WebKit, and then I just didn't even realize that was something you could do. So congratulations on threading that needle. How are you doing that? If you can say, I don't know.
Well, one part of that is just sheer determination. And if we are going to do this, we're going to do this properly, because people will not otherwise pay. You have to have top quality products. The craftsmanship has to be recognized, and that means doing hard things. And the second part of it is obviously the team. have a super talented team, people who are basically able to pull this off. And our Orion team is just 6 people, and they are doing this. And Orion had more than 1 million downloads last year, and super ambitious project. And we are looking to V1 this November. It has been in beta basically for 6 years. We are feeling like we are finally getting there. So yeah, it has been a journey, quite a journey. Same with Kagi, but there's just this determination: we're gonna do this properly, and we're gonna build products that are worth paying for in the sea of free alternatives. And as such, Orion also has a paid business model where the browser is free, but you can actually opt in to pay for it. We call it pay to own your browser, like you used to do 20 years ago. You guys must remember that there were paid browsers
Sure.
in the early 2000s, and then that sort of stopped happening, stopped being a thing, which I thought was not really cool, because browser is even more in a way important than search engine, right? It's the single piece of software that we spend so much time on every day. It is the most intimate tool we have on our computers, and yet somehow we allowed somebody else to be paying for our browsing for the last 2 decades. And Orion changes that, and you can pay $150 to get a lifetime license and basically own your browser, or $5 a month if you want to support it that way. So we are just changing the script on all these tools that have been free in quotes for decades, and creating a portfolio of products that you can pay to own, that have your best interest in mind, and that you can vote with your wallet with.
In thinking about Orion and the browser, so many of us use either Safari or Chrome or whatever, but we do it the same. We try to do it the same on our phones and our computers, so the history and the tabs and everything sync. Y'all have Orion for the iPhone, but iOS brings with it a different set of restrictions where you're unable to bring over, say, third-party browser engines. So you have a leg up because you're already using WebKit, but everyone's using basically the Safari engine on iOS. Does that limit the other things you can do with Orion on the iPhone? And how do you approach new features where you realize they may only be on the desktop?
Yes, it does somewhat, because on the desktop we can actually fork WebKit and make changes to it, which allows us to, for example, work on the web extension support in a fundamental way. On iOS, we still have web extension support, interestingly enough, and Orion is the only browser that does that. The subset of extensions working on iOS is much smaller, though, because we cannot modify WebKit and we have to work with what Apple gave us. But I would still say 10 or 15% of extensions work on Orion iOS, and you can go to Chrome Store or Firefox Store and load the extension into the browser. And this has been our feature from day one, basically. We built this as a proof of concept in 2018-19 and just kept improving it. Also, I should say that Apple does a pretty good job, I think, in terms of just making system features available, and we always benefit from new iOS upgrades. And Orion being natively built just automatically benefits from these upgrades. For example, in the latest macOS Tahoe, the Orion now can pick up the two-factor verification codes from SMSs.
Oh, nice.
That used to be only a Safari thing, and we didn't have to lift a finger. It was automatically propagated with the update to Orion now. So I do appreciate the work that Apple engineers do to expose these kind of things and automatically propagate to supporting browsers. So we do get a lot of benefit from the work Apple is obviously doing with macOS, iOS, and WebKit. And then we bring a lot of our own stuff on top of that.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm. If you're looking to getting into video, you need Ecamm. It's the leading video production and live streaming studio built for macOS. It's great for streaming, recording, podcasting, and presenting, because if you want to stand out, you need high-quality video. And with Ecamm, you can screen share, use multiple cameras, and even direct the show in real time with their live camera switcher. It's great for simplifying your workflow because you can do everything with the Ecamm app. Get started quickly and have everything on hand to create whatever you need with video. What impresses me most about Ecamm is how integrated it is with macOS. It is really easy to share assets from other applications into Ecamm, and it works the way you would expect a Mac app to work, and I appreciate that. Another great thing about Ecamm is that you can add elements to your video really easily. So logos, titles, lower thirds, and graphics, all super simple. You can drop in video clips, bring on an interview guest, use a green screen, and so much more. Ecamm's members are marketing professionals, podcasters, musicians, church leaders, bloggers, and content creators of all kinds. And if you're on the pro level plan, you can enjoy Ecamm for Zoom. This is awesome. You can send Ecamm's live audio and video output into a Zoom meeting, webinar, or event, and add up to 8 Zoom participants as camera sources in your broadcast or recording. Plus, you can automatically create individual participant audio and video recordings and add Zoom chat messages to your broadcast or recording as text overlays. To get 1 month free today, go to ecamm.com/MPU and use the code MPU. Again, that's 1 month for free of Ecamm Live at ecamm.com/MPU. Our thanks to Ecamm for their support of the show and all of Relay.
Vlad, one of the things that is obviously on everybody's mind right now is like, what is the future of search? We're increasingly hearing from listeners who are now conducting search through an LLM instead of going to the browser. There's been some reporting that, Google search is actually down, which is, I think, kind of unique. And Google's like throwing AI really hard into Google search now because I think they don't want to be replaced by somebody else. You guys have your assistant, but just let's talk in general. I mean, where are we at in this crossroad now as artificial intelligence becomes a bigger element in search and the web experience?
Yeah, it's something I think a lot about. Just trying to figure out where is this going. And it's super hard because things change so quickly. But overall, I would say that we are going towards a future that was portrayed in so many science fiction movies already. Like in Star Trek, you talk to your computer exclusively. You never see, someone in Alien searching and getting 10 links.
Yeah.
Right? So it's pretty clear that 10 links don't belong in future. I think we can agree on that. Now, there was an interesting study or vision by Apple in 1987 called Knowledge Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You remember that one? I think it was directed by George Lucas under Scully's leadership when Jobs were out. But that was a pretty inspiring, I should say, video, and listeners can find it on YouTube. It just shows this college professor who's talking to his computer, doing all sorts of assistant-like tasks, like research and calling their friend and searching through notes, and it's all done by this assistant. And I always thought that vision was sort of where we want to land one day, because everyone would like to have that on their desk. So I think we are moving towards that. Now, the big question is whether the current technology is going to get us there, which is the part where I'm a bit skeptical about. There are fundamental limitations to LLMs and the autoregressive nature of how they work, meaning that once they start hallucinating, they cannot be stopped. They just go off, and you don't want that in these kind of systems. Like, nobody's talking to a Star Trek computer and then verifying if the information is correct. So I think there are some fundamental limitations. And with that in mind, we are trying to be very mindful in the way we integrate AI. So we are not pushing it in users' faces. It's completely on demand in Kagi. And we try to build it as a tool and not a replacement for a brain. Basically, it's just another tool that you can use in your arsenal. And you should be mindful about the limitations of the tool, and we try to communicate them very clearly. But as I say, I think the future of interaction is going to move more towards this natural language. It's going to move more towards voice, as we've seen in all the science fiction movies. But search, interestingly, I think is not going anywhere. And not only that, I think search is going to explode by 100 times in the next few years. And the reason for that is going to be that the users of search are going to change from humans to agents, or these AIs.
Yeah.
And once you issue a query to your agent, for example, when you wake up and say, what's in the news, the agent will gonna do 100 searches in the background. So you still need search. You still need high quality search. Just the interface or the user of the search will change to these AIs. So it's an interesting thing, and one of the reasons Kagi continues to invest heavily in search, because whether it's going to be used by our users or their agents one day, you still need best, most accurate results. And puts us in a very interesting position, because you have to think about all these things all together.
Like, that raises a question in my mind. It's like, okay, so how do I tell my LLM to use a Kagi search? And I guess you guys are building things in the background to make that something that could be selectable in the future.
Yeah, you can already do that in Kagi Assistant. There's just a toggle on top that basically says, have access to the entire web or not. Yeah. So sometimes you want to cut that off. You just want to, brainstorm with LLM about a topic. So search results could actually be not wanted or add to the latency. But if you're doing research and things like that, you can just enable web access in Kagi Assistant, and it will automatically use Kagi search results. And it tends to do, like, if needed, 10, 15, 20 searches to make sure it gets the accurate outcomes.
Do you worry, though, if that vision comes true, that the value of what you're searching goes down? I mean, that's some of the tension in this conversation coming from a perspective of someone who makes their living putting things on the internet. If I am abstracted away into LLM input, no matter how good that LLM may be or who built it, if I like them or not, none of that's really relevant. But I'm not getting the page view. I'm not getting the impression, right? My business is built where I can manage that, okay, but a lot of web businesses aren't. Going back to the beginning, right? The business model being advertising on the web. There's tension there, I feel like. And how do y'all think about that as this progresses to meet users' expectations, but also protect the open web and give people creating on the web, giving them a fighting chance against this stuff? I'm sure that comes up all the time for y'all.
Yeah, it's something I think deeply about. And I think what has to change is the relationship and the business model. And one of the things that we are thinking about is this initiative where we would award publishers that appear in content created by assistant automatically proportional to the amount of content used in the answer, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're not compensated by ads, but if we use your content, it was good enough to show up in Kagi, and our assistant used it, you automatically get assigned credit that then based on Kagi's profit, you basically get a profit share at the end of the year. So it's one of the ideas that we are thinking about. Obviously, it makes sense only when Kagi is really big.
Sure.
But we are trying to do our part because I don't see a more scalable model. Big companies like OpenAI are doing these deals, like with big publishing companies. But these kind of deals tend to leave out the small guys, so you don't benefit. If they still take your content, but you don't benefit. So I don't think that's the way forward. You need a holistic solution and one that's scalable. So that's the best one that I think will work. And I imagine this from day one, actually, before even LLMs were a thing. We wanted to do that for search results. Like if you appear in our search results, we want to attribute you. And people click to your site, we want to attribute you and you get profit share. So it's something I wanted to do from day one. The obvious hindrance right now is that Kagi is too small for that to be meaningful. Like if you get 0.6 cents at the end of the year from us, it doesn't move the needle for you. So Kagi needs to become much bigger for that to be meaningful. But again, I think that's the right way to go about it. We also have to be ready for the possibility of web changing in some profound way. I haven't thought much about it, but as a fan of science fiction movies, I can also notice that there's no web in Star Trek and Alien. And, nothing else to say there, but I'm just noticing that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like there are some steps that direction now. I mean, I'll tell you my personal experience as I first kind of got into LLMs is I did try to use them as search, and they're not good enough for search at this point. Ultimately, I'm back in my browser doing searches, but there's a point at which we do have the knowledge navigator and you yell out into the room and you get the answer and there is never a search. And you just say, hey, order me new dog biscuits and they show up. All that stuff, I think, in the not so distant future could be done without a screen in a browser.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible, and I think it's good that people are asking like what those downstream effects are, which is what I was trying to get to with my question. And it's I think in a way, Kagi, I think y'all are really set up in an interesting position right now as the web changes, as search changes, as the browser changes. The incumbents that have ruled this space for so long, they may not be the next companies to take this forward, right? They're all trying, right? Google, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, asterisk, are working on AI tools and trying to be there. But some of the most interesting things happening in AI now aren't from the big platform companies. They are from folks like OpenAI and Perplexity and others. And say what you will about those companies, they're not platform companies, not in the traditional sense that we've come to know over the last 2 decades. And I think that's a really interesting inflection point, and to have a product that is distinctly different from those competitors in terms of privacy and how you work and what you value. I think that puts you all in an interesting position to see what comes next. And I don't know, it feels more and more, regardless of what you think about AI, and I certainly have extremely mixed feelings about it personally, there's no doubt that we are living through a transition in the tech industry unlike one we've seen in a long time. And I'm sure that's exciting to be there on the front lines of it and working on products kind of through that transition and understanding it firsthand. I mean, I would imagine that when you started, all those years ago, you said we're going to make an alternative search engine. I'm sure AI was on your mind. It was floating around the valley then, but y'all have had to a degree, spend time and attention on that maybe you didn't expect. And I'm sure that's all complicated, but also exciting.
Yeah, it's making our job much more harder than it already is, as you're trying to figure out all these interactions and how they end up. But I think we have a pretty principled thinking around the needs of the customer, and that guides all of our decisions. So ultimately, I think we are not susceptible to hype as some other companies are, and we realize this is a marathon, not a sprint, and just trying to do the right thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't enjoy doing this, to be honest.
Sure.
And one of the things that distinguishes Kagi and a few others, but very few, is that you're making this transition from a different business model. Like, if you look at all the big companies that are making their AI transitions, they're all ad-based business revenue, right? It's all ad-based models. So to a certain extent, they are handcuffing themselves with the transition that, like, okay, now we're going to use AI, but we still need to make our money from selling ads. So how do we bring AI in but keep the business model? And I think that's because I don't see them. I don't see Google waking up one day and saying we're not doing ads anymore. And for you've got a flexibility they don't have because you're a customer-based, business. You're saying, you give us money, we give you a service kind of thing. And I think that to some extent gives you options that maybe the big guys don't have.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I actually think that the best thing for Google would be to abandon the ad-based model. And I think they might actually do it in the future. Wow. Because I really cannot see ads being a part of the AI answers, especially as the AI answers move more to voice. Like, where do you put an ad there? Like, I know Amazon tried with Alexa; it just failed miserably. It was so awkward. And I'm pretty sure that the future of AI in that sense is subscription based. You're going to pay for capability. You're going to have $5 a month and $50 and $100 and maybe even $5,000 a month AI. But I really do not see how ads can be a part of that, and for that not to be obviously bad. So I think Google will be faced with that, and that's fine. I think they're already experimenting with Gemini subscriptions. The other companies are, trying ads, trying subscriptions. I think the difference with Kagi is that from day one, we were 100% user focused, 100% business model that aligns incentives. We did not sort of wander around. We knew what we are building and what we are trying to do. So I think that is what ultimately gives us the edge long term as these changes propagate, and the trust that we are building with our user community. Like, I think those are key components that sort of excite me for our future, and the reason that, given choice to exchange the seat of CEO with any of those other companies, I would not do it. I love my job, much better.
Well, I am selfishly rooting for you. I am going to be a subscriber as long as you keep doing it, and I really do appreciate the customer focus you guys bring to search, and I can't imagine not using Kagi anymore now that I've been on the train now for a while. So thank you so much for sticking your neck out and taking the shot.
Yeah, thanks for supporting.
We always like to finish these interviews with a few favorite apps and services of little apps or services that bring you joy and delight. Vlad, you got any on your list?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a pretty simple guy. So most of my apps are either default or Kagi replacements. I tend to start my day on Hacker News. This is one site that I read religiously. And and Kagi Small Web is the other favorite one. I just go to random people's websites and find and read random stuff. That kind of makes my day. But on the Mac side of things, there are two apps that I use daily. The Raycast. I started with Alfred as well, but moved to Raycast. I forgot why. And Clean My Mac, I thought was a pretty cool app that has great sort of design and aesthetics, but also pretty useful. So I would say that's my toolbox. Other than that, I'm just using our own products, dog fooding, and just heads down in product development. So,
well, I think a keyboard launcher in this day and age is such a power up for people. And Alfred and Raycast, they're both great. Whichever one you like, use it. I don't know. What do you think of Spotlight and the new beta? Have you been trying out the?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I like how Spotlight has evolved over the time. As I said, I have an iMac G4 on my desk, which I use mainly for product research, and I have Tiger installed on it, and I'm testing all these old browsers and things like that. And I like the Spotlight implementation in it. It's like super simple.
Yeah.
And we have actually borrowed that design in Orion. Like in Orion, when you are typing something in the URL bar, the design of the suggestions below is inspired by Tiger Spotlight. So check it out. Yeah, I thought that the one in Tahoe is an interesting one. That definitely gives you more information, and I think it's the step in the right direction. So yeah, a lot of things in Tahoe I kind of like.
Yeah, I remember when Tiger released, I thought, man, now OS 10 is good. I mean, it took, it's like you just weren't sure for first couple of releases, and it's like Tiger, it's like, okay, now the plane is flying, kind of thing. That was a great release for me, Tiger.
Yeah, not only that, but I was so impressed by my Tiger updating. I think it happened like a year ago or something. I was working on it, connected to the update server, and gave me a bunch of updates.
Oh, really?
And just the fact that, what is it, like 20 years after release or something, I could do that just kind of enforced this idea of timeless compute in my head, and really appreciating the way Apple used to do things. I couldn't say, but certainly it's still the way they're doing things. But just the fact that this 20-year-old machine would connect to a server, there is a server somewhere, received an update, I thought it was mind-blowing. So really have appreciation for the old way Apple used to build stuff.
Does this mean we're going to get a brushed metal theme across your products?
Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to build that for Kagi, because we have the custom CSS feature. You can upload user themes. So hopefully somebody does. But man, was Tiger beautiful.
And Clean My Mac, though, one thing about, we get, every time that one comes up, people say, oh, I do it in Terminal. I don't need that tool. I don't know. They just keep adding new features to it. And I really like it. It does everything. It does more than just the terminal commands. But yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. Well, Vlad, we really appreciate you coming on. If people want to learn more about what you're up to, where should they go?
Yeah, so we have Kagi on almost every social media out there. So whether that's X or Blue Sky, Mastodon, we're basically everywhere. So I think that's number one. And we have a Discord server where we have about 10,000 of our customers hanging out, just interacting with me and the team on a daily basis. So I would say those are the two first point of entries to the Kagi ecosystem.
And the website is Kagi, Kagi.com. I forgot to ask you, what is the name? Where do you get Kagi from?
Yeah, Kagi is a Japanese word for key.
Okay.
And I thought it had, kind of nice meaning to it, being sort of key to the web. A key that unlocks the web the way it should be. So, yeah.
I like it. All right. We're the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. Thank you to our sponsors today, 1Password and Ecamm. If you are a More Power Users subscriber, stick around. We got more for you. That's the ad-free extended version of the show. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.